Alright, in this lesson I'm going to go over some workflows on how you can get your models exported from Maya so they're good to go for Unity. And I'm going to be referring to this little checklist I made. Let's get them all here. Oh, disregard number 13. Alright, so we're going to go through all these little steps to make sure our models are nice and optimized as much as possible for our Unity scene. Okay, great. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go in and center each of these objects. You'll notice I have my outliner over here to the right. I always have my outliner ready to go for me. It's never fails. I always have it, so I know what I'm looking at. Alright, so each of these different models serve a different purpose, and how we center them is going to be important in the game engine. I'm going to make heavy use out of some of the tools you see on my bar, but I'll go through the menus and show you exactly where they are. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select everything in my scene, go to Modify, and Center Pivot, just so we're all on the same base. And then with them all selected, I'm going to hold down the X key or select Snap to Grid. Let me undo that. And we're just all going to snap them to the center as much as we can. Let's press spacebar and jump into our 4 perspective view. Make sure they're right on the center of the grid. And it looks like they are. Alright, so obviously some of these objects may not need to be exactly centered. For instance, this wall here, it might be nice if I already had it kind of, you know, level with the 0 axis on the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, all these things are getting in the way. What do I do? Well, with the thing I want to work on selected, I'm going to hold Shift and drag a box, select everything else, go to Display, Hide Selection. So now I'm just looking at my wall here, and you can see in the outliner everything else is kind of grayed out. So here's a little trick for changing the location of your pivot point in Maya. If you hold down the D key, D is in dog, and then select the little green handle. Right now we have it set Snap to Grid. Let's uncheck that. Let's have it set Snap to Point. That'll snap it to the vertex, the lowest vertex here. So now we have our pivot point at the bottom of our object. And if I hold X, I can snap it right to on top of my grid here. And as you can see here, maybe it's a little bit not centered. So let's pull it out and center it right there. So now we have our wall perfectly centered. Alright, what's the next step? Check face normals. Alright, what does that mean? Well, if you're not familiar, face normals are basically which way these faces are pointing. So how do you do that in Maya? Well, there's 2 ways. My favorite way and the quickest way to do it is I just go to Lighting and uncheck 2-sided lighting, and look what this is going to do. Hey, it didn't do anything, did it? Well, let's turn it around. See how that's totally black now? If we go to Lighting again and check it again, see, it turns on the lighting on the side where the normals are not facing. So let's turn that off, turn it on. What's another way? Well, you can select the object, go to Display, Polygons, and then Face Normals. And what this does is, when you have your object selected, these little green lines are showing you the direction in which every face is pointing. Notice how everything is kind of pointing to the right here. And some of the things, of course, are pointing outwards. And nothing on this side is pointing outwards. So, you know, the sides obviously where the face normals are not pointing. So that's another way, but I don't like using that because sometimes you have to go in and just manage all your face normals. You have to turn them on and off. The quickest way I like to do it is just turn off 2-sided lighting. Alright, great. So let's bring back everything else. Well, you know what? I'll just show you how to export this one model so we get bogged down in all the semantics of everything. Alright. Or not the semantics, but just, you know, bogged down with more pieces than we need to. Alright, so we need to freeze transformations now that we've checked our normal faces. Because if you don't check your normal faces, things will look invisible on the wrong side inside of Unity, since Unity by default only draws one side of the polygon or your model. Freeze transformations. This is an important one. You don't want to have, let's see, let's just close down all these extra windows. Your channel box is one of my favorite things in Unity. It shows you all the values for your model. So your directional or positional coordinates, your rotate degrees, and your scale amounts. So now that I have this centered, the face normals are checked, I'm going to go to and freeze my transformations. This zeroes everything out in your channel box, just making sure there's no weird values that might transfer into Unity and get your object all in a weird state or whatnot. So let's bring up our checkbox again. Okay, reset transformations. Sometimes you might find that whenever you center something, let's go ahead and recenter this, that you might have your pivot point kind of up in the middle of your object. Well, before I take things into Unity, I like to reset the transformation. And basically what this does is it sets the pivot point to the very center of the grid. I think this is just the cleanest way to make sure your pivot point, that does matter, and make sure it's just in a place where it's always going to be constant. And some objects, like let's hide, I'm going to use some shortcuts. I got these hide shortcuts up here. Some objects like this ammo box, sometimes you're going to want to just use a center pivot on it and just place it right in the center of your grid and just leave it there, because you never know, you don't know where you're going to be placing this ammo box. It could be up against the wall. It's not going to always be on the ground. So for objects where I know they're not always going to be on the ground, I go ahead and like to just put them in the center of the point there. So let's hide this and let's go back to our wall here. I'm just using quick shortcuts I made with the hide and show selections found in the display menu. Alright, so now that my transformations are reset, what's the next thing? Apply Lambert 1 material. Basically, we don't want our FBX files that we're going to export in bringing in any extra textures or bump maps or anything like that. We want this model as plain as possible so we can do all of our editing inside of Unity. So let's go to Window, Rendering Editors, Hypershade, and that's going to bring up my Hypershade right here. And I'm just going to middle mouse click and drag Lambert 1 onto that box. Another way to do it, this might be repetitive for some of you guys, you may already know, but you can always select the object you want to change, right click on Lambert 1, and as you're right clicking, just click and drag that up, assign selection to material. So right now our wall has no texture, it has no transforms, everything's looking good. Alright, what's the next step? Okay, we'll set measurements to centimeters, our default. Right now you'll see the grid. It's a pretty good sized grid. If I look at it here, I can see that this unit's about 10 units tall. That's because I'm working in feet. I typically like to work in feet when I'm doing environmental work, just because architectural people work in feet, and feet's what we're most accustomed to. I don't really know how long a meter is. I mean, I know it's like 3.1 feet or whatever, but feet are just what I'm comfortable in. But Unity doesn't like feet. Unity works in metrics, and in fact the default measurement in Unity is meters. That being said, we need to go to Window, Settings and Preferences, and we need to set our measurement inside of Unity so it'll play nicer with we need to set our measurements in Maya so they'll play nice with Unity. So we're just going to go to Settings right here, and to be honest, I'm going to set this to centimeter. That's just the default measurement Maya likes to use, and in my experience, exporting things out as in centimeter are going to give you, the less amount of headache. As you can see though, the grid gets really small, so I don't recommend doing this step until maybe you've centered all your objects in your scene. But since we're really just focusing on this wall, I'm not going to worry about the other things. So as far as I'm concerned, I've centered everything in the scene and we're good to go. Alright, what's the next little tip I have? Check the name of the object in your outliner, number 7. We want to make sure that whatever this object is called, it's logical. And Unity, I think the name of your object will show up in Unity, so you want to make sure you got it named right. This is Wall 03. This is one of the assets you'll find in the first lesson in Chapter 1. I like that name, but let's go back to the ammo box real quick. I'm going to hide that. Let's bring back the ammo box. So the ammo box is centered, but let's go ahead and reset those transformations, or freeze them, reset. But you'll notice that my name in the outliner is Cube 12. Well, that's a pretty terrible name. Let's call it Ammo Crate. There we go. And you can even get even more obsessive and call it Mesh, and go call Wall 03 _ Mesh, just so you're not getting confused with, there might be an Ammo Crate diffuse or an Ammo Crate normal. You might have all these different files jumbled together, so being extra careful with your naming conventions is something I always preach. So I'm going to use my, I'll quit using the shortcuts there. I'm going to select my crate, and I'm going to hide selection. And I'm going to select my wall mesh in my outliner. I'm going to display, show selection. Alright, so now that I know that my name for my object is good, I'm going to get rid of that outliner, or that hypershade. I don't need it. Alright, optimize scene to clean the scene. What does that even mean? Well, for those of you that may not know, there's quite a few functions in Maya. But if you go to File and go to Optimize Scene Size, I'm going to bring back that rendering editor, hypershade. And so we had my wall mat right here, but it's not being used. So if I right click and select objects with material, nothing is selected because Lambert 1 is applied to the wall. So notice whenever I go to File, Optimize Scene Size, look what happens to wall mat right here. Yep. It gets rid of everything in the scene of Maya that you're not using. So it cleans the scene even further. We want squeaky clean meshes and objects coming out of Maya. So that's just an extra way to make sure that happens. Alright, so we're getting closer. Copy object name in the outliner. Alright, so what does this do? Well, I'm just going to double click wall mesh 03. And I'm just going to Control and C to copy that name. It's just a little shortcut. You don't have to do it. Basically, I'm just copying this name so I can name the file wall 3 mesh later. Alright, next step. Export object as FBX with default settings. Alright, so with our object selected, we're going to go to File, Export Selection, and let's go down to our drop down list, pick FBX. Alright, well, where are we going to put this? Let's talk about file and folder organization real quick, because we're about to export this thing out. We want to make sure we know where it is. Well, on my desktop I have my SGD 113 or whatever class you're in. It might be 274 or whatever, but in this SGD 113, I'm going to bring this up a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. I have a folder for my digital tutors lesson that I worked through. I also have a folder for this assignment 1 I'm working on. So in assignment 1, this is where I'm going to be working with all my assets and all my Unity scenes. So I know where everything for assignment 1 is in this chapter 1. In fact, you know, I might want to go ahead and make a chapter 1 folder. That way I don't get confused with all the other chapters coming up. And I'll just drag these two things there. So we have SGD, chapter 1, assignment 1. Let's make a new folder and call it FBX Exports. Or we can just call it Assets. It doesn't matter, whichever one you're comfortable with. I want to make an Assets because I might also have some textures in here, and I'll call these FBX Exports. So, you know, I might go back a folder, and in Assets I might also create textures. So in FBX Exports, I now have a file structure set up where I can logically place and export this wall. So again, I'm going to select my wall, go to Export Selection, and you can go to the extra little square here and bring up some more menus. You can go to Reset Settings just to make sure you're using default settings for everything. Default FBX settings are what we're going to use. They just work. So we're going to go Export Selection, and on my desktop is where I have this saved. So there's my SGD 113, Chapter 1, Assignment 1. Here are my assets, FBX Exports, and Control V. See, copied wall 3.0 mesh. We're going to name it the exact same thing in our outliner, just so there's no confusion about what this game object is going to be in Unity. And we just export that selection. And I guess that's about it. I'm going to show you guys a quick little script that I found that helps making exporting a long list of outliner things even easier. So I'll go through all of that on how to work it. So I'm going to go in here and actually delete that wall of mesh because we're going to fill that outliner up with a bunch of stuff. So I'm just going to do some quick work real quick. So there we go. All the normals look good. I'm going to freeze all the transformations, reset all the transformations, I'm just going hyperspeed here just to show you how I kind of work real quick. With all these pieces selected in the outliner, I'm going to right click Lambert 1, assign initial shading group. So now everything is a nice gray boring color. We're going to go to File, we're going to go to Optimize Scene Size. Okay, that gets rid of all the extra materials I was using before. I see Mesh 010. That's not good. I know this is ceiling though. So let's call this ceiling mesh. And let's just keep everything consistent. I'm putting underscore mesh beside everything just because, you know, I'm OCD like that. And it helps me keep organized. Alright, so double checking. Yep, looks like we're still in centimeters. Alright, so we have this whole scene of things we want to export. And we could go through a long list of 30 different objects, export them one by one. But I found this pretty cool script I'm going to show you how to use. First, let's go ahead and save this Maya scene. I'm just going to save it on my SGD Chapter 1, Assignment 1. We'll just call this, in Assets, we'll call this Maya Assets. Yep. Alright, so what we're going to do is I'm going to close down Maya. Save that one more time. Alright. Maya, I know you can do it. Alright, so what we're going to do is, I got this FBX exporter folder here, and we're going to install a script. I don't know if many of you guys have done this before, but this is our script we're going to use, and it goes through your entire outliner and exports every single thing in your outliner with a button push and names the file what the object's named in the outliner. It's pretty awesome. So let's go to install instructions real quick. Alright. First we're going to download the .mel file, and Maya script file, mel file are the same thing. Then we're going to place it in My Documents, Maya Scripts folder. So let's go to My Documents, and let's find my Maya folder. Let's see, where are you? I want to change the view to list so I can find it. Maya, there we go. You guys kind of got a sneak peek on my computer there. And then Maya Scripts. So this looks like a good place. Well, I don't know. You'll notice I have different versions of Maya installed. So I'm actually going to navigate to 2013 64. And if I go there, now I have a whole new scripts folder here. So it might be tempting to dump it there, but I'm going to go to my current version of Maya I'm using, 2013. And I have all my scripts here. Notice I already have the FBX exporter installed there. Well, I'm going to delete it just to show you all that. All you got to do is just copy and paste. Let me put that back over there. I don't want to lose it. So I got my FBX exporter in my scripts folder now, and that's basically all you got to do. Remember, I was in Documents, Maya, pick the version of Maya I was using, Scripts. Just drop it in there. Don't change the file name of it. Now let's bring up Maya again. To install scripts, you really kind of have to have Maya, you know, not in there. Otherwise, it won't recognize the file path of the new script you just put in, and everything becomes a mess. So basically what this does is everything you have selected in your outliner, I know I've said this before, but I'm trying to fill some time. Everything you have selected in your outliner, it's going to just rock and roll and give you a you know, a clean export on everything in there, as long as you've gone through the checklist that I've made here. So that only works into that. Alright, so let's open up that scene I saved. So let's go to SGD 113, Chapter 1, Assignment 1, Assets, Maya Assets. Don't save. So now I have this long list. I can't be tasked with exporting all these separately. Well, let's load a script. So what I'm going to do, there's two ways we can go about running the script. The simplest way, number 4, since we've already restarted Maya, is we can type FBX exporter semicolon. And I'm just going to copy that. And you see this little mel line down here? You never thought you'd use that, huh? Well, with everything selected, I click, shift, click, select everything. You can just drag a box on everything. I'm going to copy and paste that command down there, and look what comes up. If you've installed the script in the right place, then this little dialog window comes up, and it's really awesome. So let's set the default path where we want to save everything. So SGD 113, Chapter 1, Assignment 1, Assets, FBX Exports. Alright, so we've set the folder we want to do it. Let's keep original location. We've already centered everything to the grid, so we don't even have to do that. I don't trust that. I like to do it myself. And now all we have to do is we've got to make sure we have everything selected in our outliner we want to export. And everything this is named is going to name the file that. So if we just press export. Wait, did it do anything? I don't even know if it did anything. Let's check. SGD 113, Chapter 1, Assets, FBX. Well, there they all are. So that's a quick little way to install a script and get everything out of Maya. Everything is in the right unit of measurement, and we're all happy here. Alright, well, that ends it for this lesson. The next one we'll see how we can get these assets set up in Unity and get the project started.